Honorable members, let us pray. Almighty God, we humbly beseech thee to look with favor upon this Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. Grant that it may perform its high duty as in thy sight. Give divine guidance to the President of the Republic. Endow members of Parliament and ministers of state with discernment and vision, integrity and courage, that through the labors of government, this land and people may be well and truly served, and thy good purposes for the common human life be realized in our midst. Amen. O God, grant us a vision of our country, fair as it might be, a country of righteousness, where none shall wrong his neighbor, a country of plenty, where evil and poverty shall be done away with, a country of brotherhood, where all success shall be founded on service, and honor shall be given to the deserving, a country of peace, where government shall rest on the will of the people and the love for the common good. Bless the efforts of those who struggle to make this vision a living reality. Inspire and strengthen our people, that they may give time, thought, and sacrifice to speed the day of the coming beauty of Ghana and Africa. Amen. Honorable members, we'll go to item 4, correction of votes and proceedings and official report. We'll start with the correction of votes and proceedings of Monday, 19th December 2022. Page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, page 12, page 13, page 14, page 15, page 16, page 17, page 18, page 19, page 20, page 21, page 22, page 23, page 24, page 25, page 26, page 27, page 28, page 29, page 30, page 31, page 32, page 33, page 34, page 35, page 36, page 37, page 38, yes, page 38.
I'm grateful, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, please, the first paragraph of page 38, the Committee on Foreign Affairs, we met to consider the host agreement of MasterCard Foundation branch office in Ghana. Host agreement, not the establishment of a MasterCard Foundation branch office. They are already operating in Ghana, but they want to be conferred a certain status. So it was a host agreement which we considered, not the establishment of a branch office. So if we could delete establishment of and just discuss the host agreement of MasterCard Foundation branch office in Ghana. I'm grateful, Mr. Speaker.
Table office, kindly take note. Page 39, page 40, page 41. Yes, please.
I'm grateful, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, the first paragraph under opening, item number 1, the meeting we held with the United Kingdom's Minister for Africa International Development, I thought it would be a better rendition if we added his name, the Right Honourable Andrew Mitchell, so that this being a house of records for accuracy's sake. So not only the position, but let's add the name, the Right Honourable Andrew Mitchell. I'm grateful, Mr. Speaker.
Please, table office, kindly catch out the name. Page 42. Page 43. Page 44. Page 45. Page 46. Honourable members, in the absence of any further corrections, the votes and proceedings of the 34th sitting held on Monday, 19 December 2022, are hereby adopted as a true record of proceedings. Honourable members, I don't have any copy of the official report, and so we'll move straight to item 5 on the order paper, which is statements. I have admitted 2 statements, and I want to give a limited time in view of the volume of work we have to 2 of our colleagues to make the statements. We will start with the statement on Open Parliament Index, and that is to be made by the Honorable Member for Ho West, Honorable Emmanuel Kwasi Bejra. Honorable Member, you may do so now.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. And Right Honorable Speaker, let me use this opportunity to congratulate you personally for steering the affairs of this Parliament. Mr. Speaker, this statement is about Open Parliament Index. That Ghana has been adjudged the best open parliament in Africa for the year 2022. Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity afforded me to make this important statement to celebrate the feat of Ghana's parliament, Ghana's parliament has chalked for being adjudged the most open parliament in the maiden edition of the African Open Parliament Transparency, Civic Participation and Public Accountability, which was launched in Accra on the 20th of July, 2022. Index is due in the year 2024. The Open Parliament Index is a mechanism put in place to assess parliaments across Africa using the three criteria of open parliament. That is transparency, civic participation, and public accountability. This criterion has been chosen considering the standards of the Open Government Partnership, the OGP, the principles of parliamentary openness, and the Interparliamentary Union's IPU indicators for democratic parliaments. With an overall score of 63.03% to beat its closest rival, that's Cape Verde, which also scored 61.86%, and Sierra Leone, that scored 57.9%. According to the report, Ghana scored lowest on public accountability with 14.32% out of the 30%, while it scored highest in the transparency category with 27.71% out of 35% allotted to that category. It scores 21% for civic participation out of 35% total score for that area. Mr. Speaker, this is coming at a time when national and regional legislatures on the continent are supposed to be the house of the African people, do not seem to be as connected to the people as was envisioned as they are getting further. These have led to the loss of credibility, legitimacy, and in the legislature, and the resultant effect of decline in democracy. With open governance becoming an important global conversation, state actors, civil society, and other non-state actors on the continent are striving to make gains in this area. This includes efforts by parliaments to introduce these practices at reaching and including citizens in their work. The Open Government Partnership, OGP, defines an open parliament as one that encourages transparency, participation, accountability throughout the legislative process. It is an essential part of an open government as ensuring access to legislative information and creating mechanisms for public participation and accountability. These are criteria to building an open, trusting relationship with citizens. To strengthen parliaments across Africa towards advancing parliamentary openness, to foster collaboration between civil society and parliaments, to promote the principle of an open parliament, identify, compare, and exchange knowledge and the best practices among national parliaments and among civil society organizations. Parliamentary Network Africa, PN Africa, together with the African Parliamentary Monitoring Organization Network, APMO, created the Africa Open Parliament Index, Africa OPI. The African OPI measures the level at which parliaments across Africa have complied with the principles of the Declaration on Parliamentary Openness, which is the core to national parliament and subnational and transnational legislative bodies to increase transparency in fulfilling Parliament's role of lawmaking, oversight, and representation. By adhering to this global standard, Parliament creates opportunity to encourage civil participation and ensure higher standards of accountability to the public. The African OPI provides a standard system for assessing Parliament across Africa using the 3 pillars of open Parliament transparency, civil participation, and public accountability. Mr. Speaker, I am privy to some key recommendations made to Parliament of Ghana by the Parliamentary Monitoring Organization PMO Network in Ghana, led by the Director of the Parliamentary Network Africa, Mr. Samuel Bin, to help it improve on its areas it fell short of the assessment for the maiden African Parliamentary Open Parliament Index OPI. The group, in its 3 key recommendations, has urged the Parliament of Ghana to 1. Ensure that members of Parliament are brought up to speed on the Open Parliament and Open Government agenda by intensifying education on the subject. 2. Take a lead role in the implementation of the Open Parliament Action Plan developed by Ghana as part of the Open Parliament model. 3. Reinforce the Parliament and CSO's partnership platform to create openness, to co-create openness, open Parliament initiatives. The recommendations follow the presentation of a report of the findings of the Maiden Africa OPI to the Office of the Right Honourable Speaker, Honourable Alban Sumana Bagu, the leadership of Parliament, and some key staff of the Parliamentary Service on Thursday, November 17, 2022, at the Speaker's Conference Hall in Parliament House, in which I also participated. In their presentation, Mr. Speaker, the group indicated that though the Parliament of Ghana topped the chart in the maiden edition of the index as the most open parliament in the West Africa sub-region, the analysis of the result revealed that there were some shortcomings in the assessed areas, which suggests that there is more room for improvement. Mr. Speaker, the next index will be published in the year 2024, by which time you will still be the Speaker of Ghana's Parliament. It will be problematic if the result of the next index is not as positive as this, because the idea behind every 2 years is to be able to measure whether there has been progress. So if progress is not recorded, that will be a very big blow to us and to you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as we speak, we are aware that your other peer parliament have begun some very hard work to unseat Ghana's parliament in the next edition. This index was actually discussed on the floor of Parliament in Sierra Leone, with the Speaker pledging to put in the effort to unseat Ghana's Parliament for the first position in the next index. In line with this, the Sierra Leonean Parliament has launched a parliamentary civil society network platform. They have opened a civil society desk in Parliament to advance the open Parliament principle. The Gambian Parliament, which was called as the 7th most open Parliament on the continent, has done the same. In fact, the Africa OPI has served as a source and benchmark for some of these countries to seek for donor partnership in areas they are deemed to have fallen short. Mr. Speaker, it has been observed that the Parliamentary Network Africa, PN Africa, and partners that generally The understanding of open governance and open parliament is not well known among members of parliament among staff of parliament. Quite erroneously, OGP and open parliament is actually considered as equivalent to e-parliament, but it goes beyond the e-parliament or electronic parliament. So, Mr. Speaker, there is a need for a lot of education to members of parliament and staff about open government and open government principles and open parliament. Mr. Speaker, at a workshop which was held at the Parliamentary Training Institute just after COVID-19 pandemic, it was quite shocking revelation to note that out of the 20 members of parliament who participated, only about 4 of them knew about the Open Government Initiative. This further underscores the need for a lot of education in this area. Mr. Speaker, luckily for us, Honorable Amapoma, MP for Joabin, and myself are Parliament's representation on National OGP Steering Committee. I wish therefore to inform the House that OGP Secretariat in Ghana is very willing to see how it will be able to partner with Parliament with a lot of capacity building. The second is that Ghana has an open action plan on open government partnership. And Mr. Speaker, for the very first time, there is a chapter on open parliament in that national action plan. Ghana's action plan is touted as very good in many international fora because there's an open parliament chapter in there. But Mr. Speaker, that is not enough. There's a need to advance beyond being captured in the plan and taking decisive action for the implementation. By the close of next year, the things that were promised in the action plan goes undone. If by the close of next year, the things that were promised in the action plan goes undone, it will mean that all the touting that was done will have gone waste. Mr. Speaker, the last recommendation is that there is a need to concretize some of the intervention that will help solve some of the problems that were identified in this area. Working collectively with the civil society, Parliament does not have all the budget sometimes to be able to deal with some of these things. Some of these civil society organizations are already working in some of these areas. Mr. Speaker, a good partnership will mean that CSOs will be leveraging or will be leveraged on to facilitate and to have some of these things developed. As far back as the year 2020, there was an idea to create a steering committee in accordance with OGP principles, with equal number of members of staff of parliament and equal number of civil society organizations, which was facilitated by WFD, Westminster Foundation for Democracy, which I played an important role. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and there is a need to reinvigorate that proposal to help achieve the desired objective. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and once again, congratulations and thanks for the opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this statement ably made by the Member of Parliament for Ho West, Honourable Bedra. Speaker, I must admit that reading the statement, my own personal ignorance with respect to the workings and the existence of this open governance and open parliament has been brought to the fore because, no, honestly, this is the first time that I'm hearing of it. Clearly, I fall within the category of members of parliament who are ignorant of this noble objective that clearly is intended to link government and governance with its people and citizens. Mr. Speaker, it is indeed refreshing that Ghana has been adjudged the overall best parliament in Africa following this survey, especially because, Speaker, I'm sure as members are aware, we are almost always at the receiving end of public criticism. This parliament especially receives its share of banter from our media men and civil society organizations. And so for Ghana to emerge as the winner of this maiden activity, having warded off stiff competition from Cape Verde, Sierra Leone, and other countries, and winning this maiden event is worthy of celebration. Speaker, indeed, many a time when recommendations, as has been outlined in the statement, are proffered, they tend to be kept on the shelf, and no real action is taken to implement those recommendations. It is my prayer that this Parliament, as part of the process of deepening opening governance in our country, where the citizens of our country will see the work that this Parliament is doing, that
Honourable Member, just a minute. Second Deputy Speaker to take a chair. I'll be back soon. Please, you may continue.
Thank you. That governance really is supposed to be an interface between the various competing interests in the state. It's what it is that is promoted. And so it's important that the recommendations that have been outlined by the group is implemented so that the good people of this country would see the work of its parliament and not be cast in the mold where at every opportunity we are castigated as if to say we are some burden of sorts. Because, Speaker, indeed, if you look at our governance architecture, the role of Parliament as an important organ of state cannot be overemphasized. But many a time, because of the lack of knowledge on the part of our citizens, we tend to be at the receiving end, and everything that we do is rather subject to public criticism and in some extent in this day of social media to public ridicule. And I think that better education and engagement to the people would help in erasing that notion and put Parliament at the forefront of the engagement between governance and citizens. And so, Speaker, this obviously is an important statement, and I wish to commend the maker for the statement and to congratulate the Parliament of Ghana, led by the able Speaker, Right Honourable Babin, for steering the affairs, of course, the leadership of both sides of the House, for steering the affairs of this House to the extent that it's been recognized globally as the best Parliament in Africa. Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker, for the opportunity to make these few words to the statement that has been made by the maker of the statement. Thank you.
Leader, I'll come to you. Let me do one before I come to you. So, Honourable Member for Northtown.
I'm most grateful, Honourable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this statement. Mr. Speaker, I would like to commend the Honourable Bajira for this well-researched statement, which draws attention to our collective success in the Open Parliament Index, which was conducted and published this year. Mr. Speaker, I recall that when the report was to be officially outlawed in Ghana, the Right Honourable Speaker had to travel abroad for an official engagement, and so asked that some of us attend the press launch of this report. So I was part of the delegation led by the respected First Deputy Speaker of Parliament, the Honorable Joe Osewusu, who led us to this press launch. It was at the Alisa Hotel. And Mr. Speaker, this was an event which was live on all social media networks across the continent. It was followed very keenly. I recall that when they showed during the launch the countries and these various speakers who were following the event, all the 13 African countries who were reviewed participated very, very keenly, and they were all hoping that they will do well in the report. So it came to us, the Ghanaian delegation, it came to us as great joy when we were adjudged the best performing parliament. The Speaker, as the maker of the statement has alluded to, there were 3 key indicators: transparency, civic participation, and public accountability. These are very, very important democratic pillars for any democracy to thrive, for any parliament to be worth its salt, and to represent the people as it should in a democracy, carrying out its oversight and making sure that the ancestral principle of checks and balances, as propounded by Montesquieu, John Hobbes, and other thinkers of that era. You need these cardinal principles to be well established and to be well followed. And so, Mr. Speaker, it is very much in order to congratulate the Ghanaian Parliament, led by Speaker Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagbin, to congratulate your good self, the second Deputy Speaker, the first Deputy Speaker, and indeed the entire staff, management, and members of this legislative arm for placing this Parliament on the map and attracting the laurels that we have attracted. Mr. Speaker, I would like to draw attention to the fact that if you look at the countries that we beat, particularly Cape Verde, which came second, Cape Verde consistently, Mr. Speaker, does very, very well on all governance indicators. If you look at even the Corruption Perception Index, published by Transparency International, you notice that Cape Verde consistently does very well.
Yeah, Honorable, hold on. The Speaker is taking the chair.
Honourable Member, you may go on.
I'm grateful, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, I was making the point that the countries that the Ghanaian Parliament competed against are countries that do very, very well in other governance indicators, and I was singling out Cape Verde. Cape Verde is considered that it's always consistently in the top 2 least corrupt countries. And in terms of the governance indicators, if you look at even the Mo Ibrahim Index and other UN governance assessments, Cape Verde does very, very well. So for us to beat Cape Verde in this ranking, which looks at transparency, looks at civic participation, looks at public accountability, it's no mean a feat. And we need to pat ourselves on the back. It shows that this Parliament is doing something right. We are really pursuing the dreams of those who established this institution to carry out oversight, to represent the people, and to advance the cause of democracy. Mr. Speaker, I must commend you highly that your leadership of this arm of government is responsible for this sterling performance. You have brought a number of innovations since you became Speaker. The seminar lectures that allows for experts to critique the work of Parliament and to delve deeply, intellectually, into our governance architecture and the role of Parliament is one that must be commended and clearly institutionalized even many years after you have left the seat of Speaker. Then, Mr. Speaker, you've also been doing something very, very novel. Your surprise visits recently, I recall you visited the school feeding program. Clearly, you do not want to be an armchair speaker who hears about these matters, receives petitions, and then just allows it to gather dust. But on your own accord, you go to these places of interest that have come up for concern, and you ascertain yourself what really is going on there. And that was a visit that was very well received, not only by the school feeding caterers, but by parents and then students and pupils in general. So, Mr. Speaker, your innovations, your quick response to petitions, relaying those petitions to various committees and various members of parliament to act on them, and some of your novel rulings when we are in uncharted waters, like the recent one with the Article 82 vote of censure matter, which was novel in the Ghanaian parliament. So, Mr. Speaker, this is really a testimony of your leadership. It's an endorsement of the kind of skills that you have brought to bear with all the experience that you have accumulated over more than 2 decades. So congratulations are in order for the Parliament of Ghana. May we not rest on our oars. There is more room for improvement, 63.03%. It shows that we can aim for 70, aim for 80, and if we can get 100%, why not? It will be welcome. And as Honorable Beja has said, other countries have launched initiatives determined to unseat us. So we should not get complacent, and we should do well to maintain this enviable position of scoring #1 on the Open Parliament Index. So congratulations, Mr. Speaker, and congratulations to the Parliament of Ghana. I commend Honorable Beja for making the statement. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this very important statement. Honorable Speaker, I am excited that the quality of your work over the years is bearing fruit. We are privileged to have a speaker who was for a long time a member of parliament. And I'm tempted to come to some conclusion because of the caliber of the speaker, which is giving us these laurels. Honorable Speaker, I'm trusting God that He continue to shepherd this parliament so that we achieve more success in the coming years. Honorable Speaker, if we're a student of history, remember Lenin, who led the Bolshevik Revolution, saying that deriding the parliaments of the Western world, that the parliaments were a talking shop. And I look back into that and I realize that it is always the case that those who hate democracy will deride a parliament. But it is becoming increasingly clear that if you measure countries that have parliaments, they've always performed better than where governance is at the whims and caprices of a man. Sometime back, somebody will sit somewhere and prepare a budget. And then that is the end of the matter. The budget is just read to the nation, and you won't have your committees trying to grill ministers as to why this and why that. So the open parliament is very good for our civilization, in the sense that without it, we are in the dark days in which one man rule is the order of the day. But right now, the executive will need to come over here and justify why we should give them the money to spend on behalf of the people. Honorable Speaker, let me touch on this issue of civil participation, because some people believe that we don't do that enough. It is proper for a member of parliament to engage his constituency and filter ideas which are very germane and maybe come to this house to defend those ideas. That is what you should do. What is it that really touches the heart of your constituency, you can go on that exercise and come out with very good ideas. But unfortunately for us, most members of parliament are unable to go into this exercise as they ought. Anytime you show up in a constituency, it's like people want to dip their hands into your pocket. People are not interested in the ideas that will promote democracy. I'm sorry to tell you this, Honorable Speaker, the people we claim we represent, most of them are so stomach-driven, and they are not interested in, with the greatest respect, the kind of serious engagements and transactions which take place in this House. Okay. So there is a necessity to have a civil participation. It might come with a huge cost, but nevertheless, we should try as much as possible to let them understand the role of a member of parliament, that he is not a money bag, but he is the individual who come and represent the interests of the people in the community, and to pass laws, which is essentially what we are supposed to do. Honourable Speaker, in talking about the e-parliament, my sense of it is that, is it possible that the proceedings of this great House are reduced into some of our local languages for those who are interested to understand what is happening, to come to terms with what we do here? The Hansard is in English, and probably if some people are interested in understanding what we do here and they are in local language and they will understand it, it will be good. Honourable Speaker, I don't want to rewrite this statement. I want to end on the note that our civilization in terms of democracy is expanding. I am very glad that we are judged as the best in open parliament, and by implications our democracy is thriving. Let this democratic process continue, and at the heart of this democracy is the work of parliament. If you look at all that the United States of America has achieved, they call them the best nation in the world. Their democracy is very ancient. 200 years. We've just done a couple of years. If we do not have any interruption in this parliament to be expanded in terms of meaning and substance, people sitting as speakers, the future of this great nation. I want to thank Honorable Emmanuel Bezra, the good member of parliament for Old West, for putting together this all-important statement. I do not know whether he might want to stand again as a member of parliament, but continue your good works. I'm grateful to you, Honourable Speaker.
Yes, Honourable Member, in fact, I was trying to be gender balanced, but you took some time in rising, so I'll allow the Honourable Member for Bofo. Then after that, a few words, and then we can move on.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Let me join colleagues to commend Honourable Bejura for the statement that has been made. And let me also join colleagues to commend particularly the Right Honourable Speaker and how his tenure as Speaker has indeed advanced the boundaries of the practice of parliamentary democracy in Ghana. One could not have expected anything less given the pedigree of our own Speaker, his depth of knowledge in the area, his experience on both sides of the House over the years, from the backbench to the leadership position. And I believe all these have counted in catapulting our parliament to be able to be determined as the best performing parliament in this index. But Mr. Speaker, let me just caution that we should not be content with this index and where it places us. If you look at the report, we're looking at only 13 countries in Africa. Only 13 countries in Africa. And Africa has about 51 countries. So out of 51, only 13 countries were analyzed. And Mr. Speaker, I will say that I know all these countries personally and their parliaments and how they function. And indeed, they are not, by any standard, the yardstick by which Ghana should be assessed. And I know Honorable Bajira knows what I'm talking about. Because, Mr. Speaker, the countries as listed, Benin, Burkina Faso, Cape Verde, Cote d'Ivoire, the Gambia, Ghana, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Niger, Nigeria, Senegal, Sierra Leone, and Togo, all of them happen to be in ECOWAS. Almost all of them. In fact, all of them happen to be in ECOWAS. And we know them. All these countries we visited, all these countries, their parliaments have issues that some of us have been directly involved in trying to address. And there are any standard, a measure for assessing the stature of the Parliament of Ghana. And so I do not honestly think that this is a matter that we should gloat over, that we've been assessed as the best country. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, for Ghana, we should be measured against the US Senate. We should be assessed against Westminster. Those are our standards. Our standards are not the people around West Africa. Those are not our standards. I mean, I go around West Africa, and when I come home and I hear Ghanaians complaining, I just laugh. I said, if you just went next doors and saw what is happening next doors, you would know that it's in a class of its own. But Ghanaians complain because West Africa is not their standard. Indeed, Africa is not their standard. When Ghanaians complain, they are complaining because we are not meeting the standards of the Senate of the US, of the Congress of the US, of Westminster Parliament in the United Kingdom. Those are the standards by which Ghana as a country should be assessed. And so we need to work towards those standards. And I believe that we have the capacity, we have the leadership with the requisite depth of knowledge, skills, and experience to steer our affairs to those heights. And I believe that we have the women and men in this House who will be able to measure to those standards if collectively we work very hard. Nevertheless, Mr. Speaker, given that by some impartial standards we have been adjudged the best, we want to commend ourselves for having achieved those standards, and in particular to commend you, the Right Honourable Speaker, for leading us to that level, and to commend the maker of the statement for such a well-researched statement. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, one of our honourable ladies to have a word.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Let me start by commending Honourable Kwesi Bajira for the statement, and then also to add my voice in congratulating you, Mr. Speaker, that Ghana attained the best open parliament in Africa. Indeed, I'm not surprised at all, Mr. Speaker, that we were adjudged the best, because your rich experience serving the people of Nadoli Kaleu for 7 terms gave you the opportunity to learn. And you didn't take your service lightly, but you learned using all the tools at your, not only the standing orders of this House, but the standing orders of other parliaments as well. So when you arrive at a decision, it is well balanced. Mr. Speaker, I want to also congratulate the clerk and his team, the leadership of Parliament and all the MPs for this great feat that has been achieved. And Mr. Speaker, let me also say that when you took the role as Speaker of Parliament, you were the first to shed party colours and work impartially. And no wonder this has been recognized internationally, that you have taken service in this Parliament to another level altogether. I want to agree with Honourable Atachia that there's a need for us to expand parliamentary knowledge to the grassroots level. Many people don't understand the work and the role of the MP. And indeed, they think the MPs are the money bag. Christmas come and give us all kinds of goodies, and that's the MP's role. But it goes far beyond that. And we must get our grassroots to understand that. Also, Mr. Speaker, we'll be glad under your tenure if the female participation could be increased. Because if we were to be adjudged by that, Ghana's parliament will come nowhere close to the first. But if we can do some work so that this House will see an increase in female participation, it will also be a good thing to achieve. Indeed, we have done well. I think we've had the highest number of female MPs in this parliament, or this 8th parliament. But if we can do well to also increase the numbers in the next parliament, it will be a great thing. Mr. Speaker, on that note, I want to once again congratulate you for this great feat and to congratulate Mr. Kwesi Bejira for the statement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
The last person, the Honourable Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I should thank you for the opportunity to make comments on the statement on Ghana's parliament being adjudged the most open of Africa's Open Parliament Index, which statement has been ably made by the Honourable Kwesi Bejira. Mr. Speaker, I've seen some of our colleagues, including the Honourable Ayerga, labor to say that we do not deserve praise. We do. And I disagree with him, Mr. Speaker, that this Parliament, under your leadership, have chalked some success. Open Parliament, as we are told by the maker of the statement, are parliaments that encourages transparency, participation, and accountability throughout the legislative process. Mr. Speaker, so whatever contribution you have made as Speaker, together with the clerk and all those who work for Parliament, including members of Parliament, we should be proud of Ghana's rating at that particular level. Mr. Speaker, reference is made to Cape Verde, Sierra Leone, and others. But much can be done, Mr. Speaker, to improve it. I'm aware of your own efforts in ensuring that within the presence of Parliament, and I'm particularly happy that the Minister for Communication is here, that broadband connectivity, internet, Wi-Fi is additionally made available in redundant capacity, if not for its original purpose, so that connectivity here and for purpose of research is further encouraged. Mr. Speaker, I'm also aware that you are working for us to reform our internal processes and procedures, which includes a review audit, in order that this Parliament will become more transparent and more accountable and more responsive to the needs of the people. That is commendable. Mr. Speaker, additionally, you are also at the forefront of strengthening the partnership between Parliament and civil society organizations, and have even engaged a number of the civil service organizations. I should recall the encounter in Kumasi when you brought in Professor Prempe of CDD to prepare that paper. But Mr. Speaker, Ghana's Parliament, we stand tall in many respects, but we are still found wanting when it comes to the prerogative of oversight. When it comes to our prerogative, oversight is a prerogative of every parliament. And I have said that it's only democracies that have parliaments. We need to work with you further to strengthen the oversight responsibility of Parliament in making this Parliament more transparent and more accountable. Mr. Speaker, with this comment, I want to commend the maker of the statement and commend everybody, including the clerk and the parliamentary service, who have made this possible. Mr. Speaker, it also means that the committees of Parliament, beyond public accounts, beyond appointments committee, the public still think that we are not working enough, we are not working hard enough, because they don't appreciate what we do. But at least they know what public accounts do, and they know what appointments committee do. So, Mr. Speaker, probably we should open up more committees of Parliament to the Ghanaian public. If it means that every sitting of a committee of Parliament be made public, and again commendable, because many of the committees you have said, Mr. Speaker, you insisted that they must facilitate and do their work through public hearing. That is commendable. With these words, Mr. Speaker, I want to commend the Honorable Bejira and encourage him and our colleague Deputy Minister for Communication, the Honorable Ama Pomwa, to continue to do well. But open Parliament will rely on, as I said, internet connectivity. When you sit in this chamber, I know Mr. Speaker is trying to improve it. When you go to your settings and you want to know the strength of your Wi-Fi signal, it's very poor here. It doesn't reflect the Parliament of Ghana. Once you enter the presence of Parliament, Parliament's Wi-Fi should take over, and then you can have access for purpose of research. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, let me also take this opportunity to thank the maker of the statement, and particularly all members of Parliament and the staff of Parliament. I think this success can be rightly be dedicated to members of Parliament and the staff of Parliament. It's not just me, the Speaker, who has made us succeed in being the number one when it comes to the issue of open governance or open parliaments in West Africa. We have committed ourselves to it. As you've been told, we have a plan of action, and that is being touted. And those other parliaments that are saying they want to surpass us are actually learning from our plan of action. What they don't know is that we have gone beyond our plan of action, and we are going to next year implement so many initiatives. What I can only do is to urge members on, call you to cooperate with your leadership and the Parliamentary Service Board, the clerk and management of Parliament, for us to be able to implement all these initiatives next year. Well, the assessment will be in 2024. Luckily, His Excellency the President has recommended what we proposed. The budget we submitted for next year has been supported by His Excellency greatly. And so we've already made proposals for enough funding to implement most of the initiatives we have started this year, which will roll out in detail next year. So we are not going to be complacent at all. We will not allow any parliament to overrun us. That will not happen. And so, luckily next year, the proposal to get real true offices for members of Parliament will come on board, and we will start the construction of offices, real offices, not party offices, public state offices for members of Parliament, where, as representatives of all the people in your constituency, they can reach out to you, not just only party members. And that will not be to the inconvenience of your family members. And so you now have offices for people to get access to you. That is part of the initiative. Apart from that, truly the new standing orders will open up all parliamentary committees to the media. And so Parliament, as you know, we transact our business in open. That is why you have public gallery. You don't have public gallery at cabinet meetings. You don't. And so Parliament is not only when we are in plenary session, but when we are at the committee level, we should be open to the Parliament, to the public. And we will be opening a lot, not just to the media alone, but to the public in general. And so we are trying to enter into an agreement with Ghana Television in the meantime, whilst we roll out our own television network so that we can broadcast live proceedings of this House. So there's a lot we'll have to do next year, and we have, as a result of that, got the Parliamentary Service Board to approve a new organogram for Parliament. So we are not going to have only public affairs department, we're also going to have public engagement department, and we are going to have media department. All this will work together and encourage us, which we are going to do, to establish a citizens bureau so that the citizens can have access to Parliament. They will come to the bureau with various issues, and we'll have staff there to attend to them, and members of Parliament will be called upon to attend to them. So we are working hard to establish the Budget and Fiscal Analysis Office, which will roll out next year when we pass the Budget Act. The Budget Act, which is on board, will be passed latest by next year, and then we'll have the opportunity to get all these things in place. So, honorable members, definitely we will not rest on our oars, we will not be complacent, and I'm sure with your gracious support and commitment, what people are talking about, the United States of America is not a place for us to be comparing ourselves with. This is a parliament that is born out of civil wars, and they have made some compromises. If you go to the U.S. Parliament, you don't have question time they have like in the House of Commons with the Prime Minister. We have extended ours not just to Prime Minister, to all the ministers. So it's a different scenario altogether. We don't have that in the U.S. They have a stronger committee system where they do a lot of investigations. The facilities they have there, we don't have. We're trying to do that. But as the minority leader has stated, we definitely will be investing a lot in the IT area, and there will be a serious change, and we will be having paperless parliament. Paperless parliament. And so many of you will have to update your YAM phones. You have to change them and be able to catch up with what is going to happen. So a lot will be done next year in spite of the economic difficulties. I think that this is a priority area, and government has graciously agreed to go with us. And on your behalf, I want to thank His Excellency the President for accepting the budget proposals. This will not only be work, we are also going to empower the House, the institution, and members to be able to measure up to the expectation of the constituents. And as most of you are doing already, the initiative private members' bills is what will also assist the House in our advocacy for our constituents to know who an MP is, who the duties, the responsibilities of an MP is, and what Parliament is and how Parliament works. That is an area that we are going to focus on seriously. And members will be encouraged to come with private members' bills that can solve problems at the constituency. Then they will see your relevance, your value, and then will reach out to you and be able to appreciate what you do, not continue to ask you to fund their school fees or hospital bills or dowries and the rest. So, members, I congratulate you, and I want to once again thank the maker of the statement and to assure him that together with his partner, We'll support them to go everywhere, to learn more, and to come and share with us. It's with this, I thank all members, and we move on to the next business. But before we do that, I'll have to ask the First Deputy Speaker to take the chair whilst I have some side meeting outside for a few minutes. Then I'll come back for us to conclude the issue of statements. So First Deputy Speaker to take the chair. Honourable members, in the meantime, we'll move on to item 6. We'll come back to item 5. Item 6, at the commencement of public business. Presentation of papers. Yes, please.
Speaker, then we can take motion page 6.
Item 13.
Yes.
Page 6 of the order paper.
Yes, and Speaker, with your leave, if the Deputy Minister for Energy could move the motion on behalf of his minister.
Item 13, motion. Minister for Energy, Deputy Minister, please, you have the leave to move the motion for and on behalf of the Minister.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker, for the opportunity. Speaker, I rise to move that this Honourable House approves the sum of 917,458,745 for the service of the Ministry of Energy for the year ending 31st December 2023. Speaker, this amount that we are seeking is intended to facilitate the Ministry of Energy in the implementation of its operations for 2023. Notable amongst them, Speaker, is to connect additional 400 towns under Sheds 4 and 5 and 10 key projects in the energy sector, to commence preparatory activities towards the development of a 161 kV coastal corridor and middle corridor transmission line reinforcement projects by Gridco, deploy smart all-in-one solar street lighting in MMDAs across the country, commence the process of the acquisition of site for the development of the first nuclear power in Ghana, provide support to the GOG flagship programs under 1D1F, amongst others. The circumstances, Speaker, I beg to move that this Honourable House approves the motion listed 13 on today's order paper. Thank you.
Yes, Chairman.
Yes. Right, Honourable Speaker, I rise to second the motion, and I wish to present to you your committee's report. Honourable Speaker, I crave the indulgence of the Hansard Department to capture the entire report as if it's been duly read verbatim as I highlight the salient points. Honourable Speaker, the activities of the previous year captured, and I don't want to detain the energies of this House in respect of the matters, and I would like to project the outlook for the year 2023. The power sector generation and transmission will continue in the year 2023, as well as the power distribution. Honourable Speaker, the agenda to go renewable and alternative energy is properly captured at paragraph 9.1.3 at page 9 of 14 of the committee's report. Honourable Speaker, there is also another dimension of energy that our great country would like to look at and exploit. That is the nuclear energy. Ghana is going to go nuclear energy because it helps tremendously in the energy transition. Honorable Speaker, what is very interesting for us also is that plans are afoot to drill one exploratory well, which is being facilitated by GMPC in the Volta Basin. And that is a very important dimension to our energy activities. Honorable Speaker, the evidence is clear that the Ministry of Energy has given a lot of help to our modest gains in the area of 1D, 1F. For without the adequate and reliable power supply, we will not be able to do what we are attempting to do. If I may conclude, Honorable Speaker, having critically examined the annual budget estimates of the Ministry of Energy for the 2023 financial year, the committee takes the considered view that the allocations to the ministry are justified, as it would enable the ministry to pursue the country's agenda for the energy sector. Accordingly, the committee urges the Ministry of Energy to pay particular attention to the revamping of the power sector and ensure steady exploration of hydrocarbons. In this regard, the committee recommends to the House to adopt this report and approve the sum of 117,458,745 Ghana cedis for the activities of the Ministry of Energy for the year 2023 financial year. My figures. Okay. Sorry. No, he wants me to repeat it. Yeah. Yes. The proper. The figure is 900. Yes. And 17,458,745 Ghana cedis for the activities of the Ministry of Energy for the year ending 2023. Honorable Speaker, respectfully submitted.
Yes, Honorable Ranking. Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to support the motion. But in doing that, Mr. Speaker, it is important that a few issues are highlighted. First and foremost, Mr. Speaker, your committee realized that in the expenditure, when they were accounting for the expenditure for the year 2022, there was a huge figure of 4,452,694,729 Ghana cedis, 86 pesos. That had not been, they just indicated it had been utilized. As to how it had been utilized, we simply did not know. So the committee asked that further and better particulars should be given for us to know the breakdown of this figure. Mr. Speaker, it is interesting to note that when the ministry responded to our request, they indicated that out of this 4 billion plus, about 3 billion 197 million 560,000
304 Ghana cedis and 80 pesos was used in the payment of IPPs and fuel supplies. Mr. Speaker, it is high time we became a bit more transparent when it comes to the payments in the energy sector. You will recall that just a few months ago, we were made to understand that an amount of about 17 billion was spent in the payment of capacity charges. During the censure motion that was taken in this House led by the minority, which the majority decided to boycott, the response of the Minister of Finance to Parliament confirmed what he had earlier on come in June of last year to state that from 2017 to 2020, they paid a total amount of 927 million for capacity charges, and that the rest of the money, that's the delta, the difference, was used in paying for fuel. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, it is important to note that the cost of fuel is the pass-through cost. Every Ghanaian pays for the cost of fuel. So, for example, if I were to go and buy power today and I put it in my meter and get power, I am paying for electricity because it is factored into the end user tariff. So consistently, government has been hiding behind these figures to create the impression that we are paying huge sums of money for capacity charges. To state that you spent over 3 billion for the payment of IPPs and then fuel supplies, without giving us the details of these two figures, tells us that there's so much to be done when it comes to issues of transparency. And we are not saying this just because we want to win political power. No. Mr. Speaker, it is clear that if we are not transparent about this and address the issues as they are, energy, which is supposed to be the key cornerstone for the development of our economy, will one day crash in front of us. And it is important that we are very clear about these facts whilst we move on. So we have advised that going forward, we should have clear indications as to how much we really pay for capacity charges and how much we pay to fuel suppliers. Particularly when, as we speak now, Mr. Speaker, the truth of the matter is that capacity charges are only charged when a producer, a generator, declares availability, and you are not able to dispatch the generator. But the truth of the matter is that, talk to Greco, and they will tell you that that is not true, because they have the power that is being produced is consumed fully by Ghanaians. And so let's be a bit transparent going forward in these areas. The second part that we're a bit worried, Mr. Chair, was this quest to ensure that we have a fossil-free economy. And so the whole idea of the renewable energies and what have you. I believe that everybody in this chamber will want an environment that is safe, an environment that is sustainable, and that our development should be geared towards that. And therefore, the development of renewables is very key. But, Mr. Speaker, let's not begin to behave like how Christianity came to Ghana in Africa. When the whites decided to bring Christianity to Africa, we embraced it. And now what we have done is that we have become more Christians than them, that we now go to Europe to go and preach to them about Jesus Christ. The truth of the matter is that, check currently, just because of the confusion in Europe, because of Russia, you had Germany, one of the four and the primary supporters of fossil-free economies, had to go back to use coal. They had to go back to use coal. It is important that whilst we try to do that, let's know that in the short to medium term, we will still need to use fossil fuels to build our economy. And until we are very frank with each other and see how we can get investments to take care of our stranded assets in terms of the hydrocarbons that we have in the belly of this earth, we will run into trouble. Because based on the statistics that have been given to us, even though Africa has about 39% to 40% of our renewable potential, only 2% is invested in Africa. And so let's not deceive ourselves and go on
on this particular pathway. They are trying to develop our stranded assets. That is why we told government that this ACA deal, that up to today, they have not even approved the the program of development. It's an indictment on the Ministry of Energy and on this government. And so until see how we fashion out our development to take care of some of these things, we will have challenges. On this note, Mr. Speaker, reluctantly, I will say that we should approve the allocation that has been given to the ministry. Thank you very much.
Honorable Member for Dansia Sopa.
Mr. Speaker, I haven't seen you for some time now. How are you? When we met the officials at the committee level, there was this matter of nuclear power contribution to the energy mix of the country. Chairman, I'm not sure whether he spoke eloquently about it, but he alluded to it. I'm not a prophet of doom. I don't intend to spread any panic in the system. Except to say that, Mr. Speaker, I am uncomfortable, and that's about to say the least. If you press me, I'm prepared to say that I'm afraid. And nuclear energy, Mr. Speaker, has got all of its attributes. The positive ones. You get the most efficient form of power supply, cleaner, cheaper. The other one you are not bringing out. From 1986, when Chernobyl came about, and from what we're actually witnessing now around, and Mr. Speaker, what is the name? Fukushima? I have worried if countries of the caliber that we know about, which have had to encounter problems with the nuclear fallout, I'm so anxious if Ghana is already at the stage where we should be shouting from the rooftops about nuclear energy in Ghana. The other day, Mr. Speaker, you are shouting from the rooftop, or you've reached the stage where you can shout about it. Mr. Speaker, the last few months I watched a program on one of the British channels, Sky News. Mr. Speaker, now what we're grappling with is really how to store the byproducts of all this nuclear energy. It doesn't come simply as a kind of electricity that we generate here, hydro and then thermal. No, it's nuclear is got a byproduct that got to be gotten rid of. Now, what I watched was that Britain was struggling to dispose of the nuclear waste. They were going to build an underground facility which they were hoping would last about 100 years. Now the waste, it's so contagious, it's so poisonous, it's so radioactive, that there was a worry. So you should have watched the film. How to even how to bury the containers that carried the waste into the womb of the earth, to concrete it all over. It was astonishing to do it, how scary it all was. For many, many years, when I was at the ministry, this matter of energy came out. I remember one of the professors actually asked me, what's your fear? What's your fear about it? Well, I mean, simply, I can't handle it. I hear the minister speaking from the back there that we reach the stage where we can do it. I'm afraid we should tread carefully. We shouldn't walk straight into nuclear. It may be very cheap, it may be clean, it may be efficient, But we got one single foul step, and it is cataclysm. I move over. Mr. Speaker, I don't know what the honorable member from Bongo was talking about capacity charges and whatever. Mr. Speaker, there is a problem with capacity charge. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You look at the figure, it's frightening. Well, it's a matter that the House, I heard this morning the Honorable Minority Leader talking about the responsibility the House takes because he thinks we're also allowed to balloon and all of that. I don't know about the minuses and the plans of that. But again, in respect of this matter, the take on pay, which has led to all these capacity charges, well, the House will also want to accept responsibility or not, because a few of them were brought to the House, others were not brought. You look at the figures, they are frightening. Billions. And you see, when we talk about capacity, and I think he was saying that whatever electricity was produced was consumed or is we're capable of consuming it. I don't think that is the point. If I misheard you, forgive me. But if that is the analysis, it can't be correct. Those in charge of production of electricity in the country, Mr. Speaker, have indicated clearly that there's oversupply. I think during the time when there was a panic, when there was a blackout, there was a doomsday, I mean, there was a clamor to get as much installed capacity as we possibly could afford. In the process, we put in place so much, Mr. Speaker, and that now we are saddled with it. The installed capacity 5,000 megawatts. We basically use about 3,000, and half of it. The rest would have to be paid for. You see, the point is that you force us, well, not really force us. You said we should come and install the capacity that you wanted. We installed it, it has to be paid for. The worry, Mr. Speaker, is that they are sitting there and milking the system just like that, Mr. Speaker. They are simply not producing. They are not arguing. They are happy. A couple of them I spoke to said that, well, what we do, it's not fair, but that is the contract. The contract is that you take or you pay. But we said that when we have installed capacity, we cannot take what you are prepared to produce. So they say pay. And we pay in the millions to the companies, and the sum total is in the billions. It's troubling. I do know that the Ministries of Energy and Finance, Mr. Speaker, have entered into what they call Project Light, some negotiations between the ministries, a few of the ministries, and then some other external organization, and then the IPPs. I think that the House should ensure that this arrangement succeeds, because I hear quite a few of them. Some of the IPP companies are rebelling. There is a template. I'm told that they got into a state where they could sign off a few dotted lines so that these things could be renegotiated. They're close to renegotiation, but not all of them are happy. It is milking the system. It is disastrous. They're just taking money that they haven't earned, and they're saying that they're taking it away. Look, if it comes to it, we would have to take some drastic measures and call for all the contracts. This is not buga kind of thing, but the contracts, we should have a look at the contracts. That's about it. Petrol, tallow, and others, the Speaker, they have not developed our fields to the glory of God. We have thought that by this time we'll be talking about 200 barrels of oil in a day. The Speaker, tallow took over the Jubilee, now the 10, the whatever. Really, it's dwindling. Our production is dwindling, even though there's a little bit in there. They keep saying that, well, they need money, but you got into it in the first place because we thought you had the money to develop the field. It's not very good. I think the chairman has decided that, chairman, you're going to call them to come over to the committee, isn't it? Yeah, he says yes. I mean, for them to explain to you what on earth is going on. But really, these are just some few words to help my chairman put the case as he has. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Alembele.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the motion for the approval of the budget for the Ministry of Energy. Mr. Speaker, there are a few critical issues that I want to raise. When we started oil production,
gas production, we negotiated for foundation gas, which basically was free for a period. So, Speaker, that comes to an end at the end of this year, at the end of this December. And so going forward from next year, the Jubilee gas that we are using, we are supposed to buy it at a price. Mr. Speaker, that changes the dynamics. When the committee met us, we were told that that negotiation is still ongoing and that they are using the benchmark price for the 10 gas while the negotiation continues. Very critical. We need to make sure that the conditions under which we produce Jubilee gas and negotiated for the free gas and the price that we set for 10 is what will lead us in that negotiation. We know Talo has the capacity to try to take advantage, and I think that it is important that the ministry has the right team to make sure that we come out of this negotiation, making sure that we can get a gas at a very good, cheap price for the people of Ghana. So, Speaker, the second important point has to do with, if you look at page 6, it talks about, page 7, it talks about the upstream activities. And if you look at all the upstream activities we are talking about, whether it's production of 10, Jubilee or Sankofa, Mr. Speaker, it focuses on just the 3 producing fields that we've had, thanks to the effort of the NDC government in the period. But, Mr. Speaker, we are stuck. We are stuck in the sense that there has not been additional investment, additional production, and that has consequence for our financials. We are today crying about how terrible we are in terms of debt and how important we need money. But, Mr. Speaker, the reason this is important is that we must take every step to attract investment. Unfortunately, there are a lot that this government must do to make sure that this appearance that the major players will have. As I speak to you, Mr. Speaker, there's a tussle between ENI and Springfield that has ended up in arbitration in UK. We are also dealing with them in Ghana. ENI is made major discoveries in Ivory Coast, and it looks like they've made a discovery in Ghana, but because of these hanging issues, their focus is now shifted to Cote d'Ivoire. It is important that, Mr. Speaker, as we enter the new year, the ministry works closely with GMPC to basically do all the things they can do to attract more investment to production. That, to me, is very crucial going forward. It will help us with our financial challenges and increase oil production. Mr. Speaker, we must do everything possible to make sure that those we have must feel that they have the support of the state. Mr. Speaker, as we speak about that, we must talk about AKE. We were here when the government, led by the Minister of Energy at the time, the Minister Amewu, came to this house to basically change agreements, basically to favor AKE. At the time, we were convinced that this was to allow them to fast-track oil production. Mr. Speaker, what happened? Nothing has happened, and in fact, as I speak to you, the plan of development, which is a critical step to letting them go forward with oil production, is stalled. And now, because of the changes we did in this house, the oil company is basically is in the driving seat, manipulating the state. It is important that we learn key lessons from that. Isn't it sad that the Petroleum Commission is handicapped from even asserting its regulatory powers because of some of the decisions we made? It is the reason why we have not seen oil produced from the AKE field, and we need to learn lessons from there. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of access to electricity, we continue to really miss our target in achieving universal access to electricity. And Mr. Speaker, that is very crucial. And the ministry, on page 6 of the report, had talked about the fact that they increased from 87% to 88%. Crucially, that the rate at which we are moving, our target of reaching universal access would not be achieved. But, Mr. Speaker, what is even critical is the state of ECG, the Electricity Company of Ghana, continues to struggle with debt and inefficiencies. We recall the recent challenge with meters, where so many days Ghanaians went without electricity, without light in their homes because of a glitch. Mr. Speaker, this was one of the reasons why there was an effort working with the United States government to basically invest to address some of these systemic problems, to reduce losses and allow ECG to be efficient. You will recall PDS, and at the end of the day, the U.S. took away almost $200 million that was supposed to help us critically. These are key lessons we must learn from that. Mr. Speaker, renewable energy is also another challenge if you look at this report. We have set a target of 2030 to achieve it. But frankly, if you look at the kind of budget allocation on renewable energy sources, it is as if we are saying that hopefully some countries will come and support us in that area. The future is renewable energy, Mr. Speaker, and we need to put our money where our mouth is. Mr. Speaker, on that note, I support the approval of the budget. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, if you indulge me, I'll just make a brief comment to thank you for the opportunity to support the Ministry of Energy for that sum of money, as noted by the Chairman, 917 million, to support the activities of the Ministry of Energy. And Mr. Speaker, to further state that beyond the approval of this budget estimate, it lies with the Energy Committee on behalf of this House to further interrogate and inquire into payments to IPPs. So we expect that, Chairman, you and your committee must follow up on this matter, because we are now being told, after listening to the Honorable Edward Bauer, of monies being paid for fuel and money being paid for capacities. The amount of money being expended on independent power producers. And Mr. Speaker, I say so because even when the chairman himself took opportunity to contribute to the principles of the budget, he had stated, quoting a paragraph in the budget, that $12 billion was likely to be saved. So we are demanding value for money for all payments done to IPPs. Two, those of them whose contracts have expired. My concern is, what business do we have renewing those contracts? Somebody must convince me that if an independent power producer entered into a contractual relationship in the last 5-10 years, maybe when you had doomsday, you had a challenge, why do you want to renew the contract? We want to understand. So beyond approval of budget, Chairman, you and your committee must come back and interrogate and make sure that you guarantee value for money, for taxpayers' money, as to what is paid to independent power producers. Mr. Speaker, my other curiosity will be to turn to page 6, paragraph 812, and to express my disappointment at the performance of the Ministry of Energy, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to extension of electricity. And Mr. Speaker, in that paragraph, item II, it reads, increase the national electricity access rate from 87.3% to 88.5%. This is abysmal, and we should not be commending you when communities such as Kakasi or Andala Sankura in the Kintampo area, or if you go to communities such as Beneyire in the Kumasa area in Sola, are still asking for electricity. And Mr. Speaker, you spend money this year, and I'm further going to refer, Mr. Speaker, to a table. And why, Minister, we are not satisfied with the performance of the ministry when it comes to expanding access to electrification. Mr. Speaker, if you come again to page 11, I indulge you again to paragraph 11.1. It reads, I'm interested in the last bit. The remainder of 138,711,301 Ghana cedis constituted payment to consultants, transporters, and contractors under National Electrification Scheme. Abba, how can you spend 138 million and you are accounting for 1% increase? What explanation? Only Ghana. You spend 138 million of taxpayers' money, and you can only report that you increase coverage by 1%. Minister, this is not acceptable. And this is what the Ghanaian people expect this parliament to do. You can't spend 138 million and come and report 1% marginal increase when you still have communities that are waiting for electricity. Mr. Speaker, my mathematics have never been that good. So assuming even were to spend 5 million per village, so 5 times 10, 50, times another 10, we expect that you would have reported that at least some 20 communities in this country benefited from rural electrification. So, Chairman, again, next time, your committee must give us indicative numbers. Maybe the number of communities increased from 4,000 to 4,500. I think you should do that because we can't do oversight with percentages. But, Mr. Speaker, then I conclude with that. I hope that someday this government appreciates the NDC and the past. In paragraph ESLA, when you said it was nuisance tax, it is now your savior. You are now saying that 564 million of ESLA, when John Dramani Mahama introduced it, you were loud mouth that it was nuisance tax, and that when you come, you do away with it. You have borrowed with it as your collateral and your security, and therefore sometimes when we do our politics, you must appreciate worthy things. That today, ESLA, you have not just borrowed against it, you borrowed against it even into 2035 by the Honorable Minister for Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta, ESLA. And then when they say, when you bring unpopular taxes and they fight you, then you say, oh, minority is fighting you. When you were doing away with taxes in 2017 and calling them nuisance taxes, was it not within your power? So it is also within our power to tell you that when you bring unpopular initiatives, we shouldn't do it. But Mr. Speaker, again, on the ESLA and Dachi bonds, we need further information and clarification on them. I mean, ESLA, they say they are borrowed into 2035. To do what? We should know. What? You've collateralized it. To pay who? We need to know. It should not just be left to the Ministry of Finance and his pleasure that they decide that you have 564 million, which is being used from ESLA funds in 2022. Then, Mr. Speaker, finally, there is a matter. I thought the Honorable Buai was technical. Maybe Katie will help me. But I've heard the commentary. I see the ranking sitting with the chairman. You people must resolve it for Ghana. I picked it on the streets abroad. What is this thing about unitization of an oil field, which is holding Ghana in abeyance as a country? Mr. Speaker, they must have granted an oil block, and they are quarreling. I heard it from my foreign sources, very credible. We must bring an end to it. Because, Mr. Speaker, I hear today the way government is struggling, even for money. If you do that oil field alone, maybe Japan or Korea could give you 1 billion as guarantee in respect of it to save this economy. So whatever matter has to do with unitization, I don't have the details as I have said. But so share the details. When you were debating, why didn't you bring it up? You must bring it up, Mr. Speaker. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
At the conclusion of the debate, the question is, all in favor of the House adopting the report, say aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. This House has approved the sum of 917,458,745 Ghana cedis for the services of the Ministry of Energy for the year ending 31st January 2023. Yes.
Speaker, if we can do page 3, item 6D, from DI to page 4, VII, and with your leave, if the minority leader could lay those reports.
Yes. Presentation of papers. Yes. Aye.
Reports of the Special Budget Committee on the annual budget estimates of the National Media Commission for the year ending 31st December 2023. Reports of the Special Budget Committee on the annual budget estimates of the Electoral Commission for the year ending 31st December 2023. Report of the Special Budget Committee on the annual budget estimates of the National Commission for Civic Education for the year ending 31st December 2023. Report of the Special Budget Committee on the annual budget estimates of the Public Services Commission for the year ending 31st December 2023. Report of the Special Budget Committee on the annual budget estimates of the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice for the year ending 31st December 2023. Reports of the Special Budget Committee on the annual budget estimates of the Audit Service for the year ending 31st December 2023. Reports of the Special Budget Committee on the annual budget estimates of Parliament and the Parliamentary Service for the year ending 31st December 2023.
The reports are duly presented. They are for distribution to members. Yes.
Speaker, we can now go to page 6, motion number 11. And with your leave, if the Deputy Minister for Employment and Labour Relations could do it on, the Minister is unavailable absent.
Yes, item 11.
Speaker, I want to be consistent. I have no problem with the Deputy Minister. Speaker, we have served you notice that ministers must appear in person. So, Honorable, I have no problem with you, but I want to maintain that I'm consistent sitting here. Unless you give me plausible explanation, convincing, I won't accept a Deputy Minister moving the motion. Where is the Minister?
The Honorable Minister was here the whole of yesterday. Not a challenge with his work, he would be here. So, I will kindly suggest that I permit the Honorable Deputy Minister to proceed. So, Honorable Deputy Minister, you may proceed.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I beg to move that this Honorable House approves the sum of 76,699,342 cedis for the services of the Ministry of Employment and Labour Relations for the year ending 31st December 2023. I so move.
Yes, Chairman of the Committee.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. I rise to second the motion ably moved by the Minister. And in so doing, I present the committee's report. Mr. Speaker, I want the Hazard Department to capture the entire report as having been read, as I move straight to the conclusion of the report. With your permission, I read. The Ministry of Employment and Labour Relations mandate of coordinating labor-related policies, promoting job creation and decent working environment, and fostering industrial peace can only be achieved if the ministry is given the needed resources to undertake its functions effectively and efficiently. In view of the above, the committee recommends that the House adopts its report and approve the sum of 76,699,342 Ghana cedis to enable the Ministry of Employment and Labour Relations to implement its program and activities for the 2023 financial year, respectively submitted. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Ranking Member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the motion that this Honorable House approve the sum of 76,699,342 cedis for the services of Employment, Ministry of Employment
Labor Relations for the year ending 31st December 2023. Mr. Speaker, the total amount for 2022, the total amount of 258.1 million was approved for the ministry and its agency. Mr. Speaker, the total, out of it, the total of 211.3 million was revised budget from 258.1 million, and 131.2 has been released for the operations, leaving a variance of 30% of revised budgets. So, Speaker, the total amount released, the ministry had expended 128. Why about 63% of the compensation budget was released? So, Speaker, about small portion of goods and services and CapEx was released, meaning that the ministry cannot perform the important programs and activities. Then the staff will be hanging around without performing important jobs. So, Speaker, you also observed from 2023 budget, there was a sharp decline in the total budgetary allocation from 258.1 million to 76.6 million in 2023. This came as a result of moving the technical and vocational institutions and to Ghana Ministry of Education. And also, Mr. Speaker, the National Pension Regulatory Authority, who was a part of the ministry budget, was also removed. Mr. Speaker, you observe that there was a decline of internally generated fund, which is supposed to charge the fee for the programs. And this was also reduced because of removal of the technical and vocational institution from the ministry. Mr. Speaker, we noted also that the late start of a negotiation by the ministry brought about the high expectation for the union. And therefore, the Speaker, they factored everything together like high cost of living and current economic situation. That's the reason why they were not able to come into agreement. The Speaker, when it comes to employment agency, youth employment agency was allocated a total of 904.9 million to implement the programs and activities for the year 2022. That mainly agency budget was funded by the communication service tax 80%, then Get Fund 5%, and then District Assembly Common Fund 10%. Agency only received a total of 297.7 million of the total budgetary allocation for 2022. So, Speaker, this represented 3% of entire allocation, leaving a balance of 607.2 million. The Speaker, apart from the communication service tax, which had made some release of 41% of allocation, this is Assembly Common Fund, Get Fund had only released 6% of their portion. Mr. Speaker, this is a very worrying, because the failure of this Assembly Common Fund, Get Fund, to comply fully with the laws requiring them to transfer 10% and 5% respectively of the fund to Youth Employment Authority. So, Mr. Speaker, you also observe that communication service tax has been capped. This capping, coupled with the inadequate release of the fund, affected the smooth implementation of agencies' various models. What we know from the Ministry of Employment, Labour and Relations, Mr. Speaker, is to initiate, formulate, and coordinate a set-up policy programs. With this, we expect the ministry that they will coordinate to all employment generation programs of the government. However, Mr. Speaker, it is noted that most of the government initiatives toward the employment generation are not coordinated by the ministry. And that is not making ministry so strong. With this view, Mr. Speaker, I support the motion. Thank you.
At the conclusion of the debate, the question is all. Oh, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the motion listed as motion number 10 for this Honorable House to approve the budgetary allocation for the National Labour Commission. Mr. Speaker, I would want to add to the earlier contributors and make the case that we have not paid the needed attention to the National Labour Commission.
Yeah. Why have you resumed your seat? Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, the report I have is for the National Labour Commission, but I'm getting signals that this is for the main ministry. Am I
Very
right?
well. Okay, so can you resume your seat? Yes. That was what you wanted to draw my attention to. Very well. Okay. Should I give the floor to another person? Yes.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Speaker, I want to draw attention to some errors in some of the figures on page 4, table 1. Speaker, table 1, total for goods and services should amount to 83,192,000 instead of 92,000. Speaker, that figure is understated by 100,000 Ghana cedis. Then the total for CAPEX total should be 74,990,000. Speaker, that figure will be understated by 2 million. And I can see the same thing running through the total for IGF. IGF should total 145,048 Ghana cedis. Speaker, if these are corrected, the grand total for table 1 should be 270,000 Ghana cedis instead of the 258,000 over there. Thank you, Speaker.
Honourable Minister, take note and make the correction. This is a report for the 2022 budget year. Is that right? Very well. Yes, if you wish to report on that. Is the figure in the 2023 year correct? So I'll put a question at the conclusion of the debate. The question is all in favor of the motion. Say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. This House has approved the sum of 76,699,342 Ghana cedis for the services of the Ministry of Employment and Labour Relations for the year ending 31st December 2023.
Speaker, we can now take motion number 10 on page 6, and the Deputy Minister, with your leave, will move the motion.
Yes. Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to move that this Honourable House approves the sum of 8,618,360 Ghana cedis for the services of the National Labour Commission for the year ending 31st December 2023. I so move.
Yes, the ranking member. Chairman, sorry, you may present your report.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to second the motion ably moved by the Deputy Minister. And in so doing, present the committee's report. Mr. Speaker, I want the Hansa Department to capture the entire report as having been read, as I move to the page 9 of the report about the conclusion. The National Labour Commission, established under Section 135 of the Labour Act 2003, aims to develop and sustain a peaceful and harmonious industrial relations environment using effective dispute resolution practices within the context of the law, promotion of cooperation among the labor market players, and mutual respect for their rights and responsibilities. It is therefore in the interest of the government and the entire nation to ensure that the Commission has the resources required to deliver effectively on its mandate. Considering the above, the committee recommends the House to adopt its report and approve the sum of 8,618,360 Ghana cedis to support the services and work of the National Labour Commission for the 2023 financial year, respectively submitted. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the motion that this Honourable House approve the sum of 8.6 billion for the service of National Labour Commission for the year ending 31st December 2023. The Speaker, Labour Commission was allocated an amount of 6.2 million for 2022 for the implementation of the programs and activities. Out of the approved budget, Mr. Speaker, 4.5 was released. With respect to the compensation of the employee, an amount of 2.7 was expended in 2022. Mr. Speaker, this amount involved the salaries and the board sitting allowance, as well as new recruited amount. The Speaker, the total expenditure on goods and services amounted to 947,000. It is noted that, Mr. Speaker, it has been from 2023, so I've noted that it has been an increase in budgetary allocation from 2022 of 25%. Mr. Speaker, from 7.3 low staff level. It is also noted that the current condition of service is unattractive to high caliber of human resource required, because that a number of the staff of the Commission have resigned, and because of this unattractive, people are not willing to apply. The Speaker, the inability of the Ministry of Finance to provide the needed financial clearance to recruit new staff also is a problem, and this has undermined the capacity to deal with this huge volume of cases. The Speaker, in line with the Commission vision of creating peaceful industrial relation environment, it has planned to bring the service more closer to the clients at areas where they are most needed. We noted that, Mr. Speaker, the Commission does not generate revenue from its services. It is our vision that it is now a time for the Commission to charge a fee for some of the services it rendered to the public. This will enable the Commission to become viable and can generate some revenue internally to support its services. With these few words, Mr. Speaker, I support the motion to be approved. Thank you.
Yes, honourable members.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the motion for the approval of the annual budget for the National Labour Commission. Of concern to me is the apparent low attention or near neglect for the activities of the National Labour Commission. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the mandate of the Commission, it is never lost on us that at this time in our national development, the need for attention in maintaining a harmonious labor relations within our industrial enclaves cannot be overemphasized. And if you permit me, under paragraph 3, we also anticipate that the Commission will be up in settling labor disputes, and not just that, but doing that expeditiously to ensure that our labor front is peaceful. But it appears that the continuous low allocations to the Labour Commission is affecting their role. And you would notice that out of about 487 complaints that the Commission received, only 47% were resolved. And I think that is below what we'll call a pass mark. Again, if you look at the total cases that came before the Commission, and I refer to paragraph 4.2.2, it says the Commission received a total of 334 complaints from workers in the public and private sectors. This was by the end of the third quarter of 2022 alone. Out of this number, the Commission resolved 153 of the complaints, representing a paltry 44%. So clearly, a very important institution such as the Labour Commission that must help us in these difficult times, difficult economic times, is not resourced well enough for them to execute their mandate. Mr. Speaker, again, the Commission made this point of high attrition rate in the Commission clear to at the committee level. And I would have thought that at least the minimum we could do is to ensure that if we are not increasing their staff numbers, every time they have exits, we would be quick to replace. And for 2022 budget, the amount that was approved for compensation was not utilized, not because the Commission didn't need that amount, but it was because the Ministry of Finance failed to release what was due the Commission to enable them get the requisite staff to discharge their mandate. Mr. Speaker, I think that the National Labour Commission is one institution that must be given the needed attention. For us in Tema, where we see a lot of complaints and a lot of industrial challenges, I would want to call on this House to pay better attention to the Labour Commission, said that since the committee did not have the mandate to increase the budgetary allocation to the Commission, we would call on this House to ensure that the little budget allocation that is given, the Ministry of Finance must ensure that whatever is needed by the Commission is released on time for them to discharge their mandate. To conclude, Mr. Speaker, it's also important that if you look at the outlook for 2023, we cannot afford to hold the Labour Commission down and prevent them from discharging the duties as we envision for 2023. I say this because under the capers and goods and services, it looks like we are already planning for the Commission to continue in their low performance even in the coming year. And I would have thought that if nothing can be done by mid-year review, we should take a second look at how we resource the National Labour Commission to make them effective in holding the labour front as we face or we anticipate
some more stringent economic challenges in the days and months ahead. With these few words, Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity.
Very well, yes. Available leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the roles of the Ghana Labour Commission are such that should attract the careful attention of this House. Mr. Speaker, if you look at page 6, 7.1 of the House or the committee's report, Mr. Speaker, you will find the National Labour Commission unable to pay salaries of newly recruited staff. Mr. Speaker, when we interrogated this issue, it cropped up that sometimes for 3 months after recruiting new staff, the National Labour Commission is unable to pay this newly recruited staff. Mr. Speaker, for a regulatory body that has the responsibility of ensuring labor standards, being unable to keep same standard, Mr. Speaker, becomes, to say the least, unbecoming of a regulatory body. How are you going to enforce labor standards if you, the regulator, is unable to maintain same standards? The laws of Ghana expect a worker to be paid at the end of the month when the worker has worked for the whole month. And such disputes, the worker has a right to go to the regulatory body to enforce his rights. But here we are with the regulatory body breaching such rights. Mr. Speaker, it is so serious that I believe this House must take a decision that will enable the regulatory body, at the minimum, stay within the confines of the law, of respecting labor rights. And the non-respect of labor rights, Mr. Speaker, creates a lack of confidence in the regulator. Mr. Speaker, as we go into 2023 with the expected fiscal challenges the economy will face, it is unfortunately going to be inevitable that disputes between employer and employee will arise, especially employees who are employed by the state of Ghana. Indeed, as we speak, the war drums of labor unrest are being beaten by public sector workers over their pensions. The Labour Commission will be expected to arbitrate and create a conducive environment for the resolution of such disputes. And yet the Commission itself is so challenged by funding. The Labour Commission is one of the few regulatory bodies, indeed the only one I know, that does not charge for any part of its services. All regulatory bodies charge for most of their services and therefore generate funds to run the organization. The National Labour Commission is the only exception. And it is important, Mr. Speaker, that this anomaly is rectified to enable the National Labour Commission to generate some amount of income to support its operations. If the institution with responsibility for labor disputes has a budget of less than 9 million cedis to cover all labor issues across the country, then, Mr. Speaker, we have a challenge. Mr. Speaker, with these few words, yes.
with these few words, I add my voice to the motion for the plea for this report to be adopted, but with the recommendation that the Labour Commission be more resourced than it has. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
On the conclusion of the debate, the question is, all in favor of the motion say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. This House has approved the sum of 8,618,360 Ghana cedis for the services of the National Labour Commission for the year ending 31st December 2023. Yes.
Speaker, now we can take motion 21 on page 8. And with your leave, if the Deputy Minister for Labour, Employment and Labour can move the motion. Thanks.
Very well. Item 21, motion. Minister for Labour Relations, Employment and Labour Relations.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. I beg to move that this Honourable House approves the sum of 98,461,210 Ghana cedis for the services of the National Pensions Regulatory Authority for the year ending 31st December 2023. Speaker, in so doing, I would just mention that approving this budget for the National Pensions Regulatory Authority will enable them to, as it were, decentralize and be able to cater for the services of pensioners in all parts of the country. So I will indulge the House to approve this for the MPR. I so move, Speaker.
MPR. Yes, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support, second the motion ably moved by the Deputy Minister. Mr. Speaker, in so doing, I present the committee's report. And I want the Hansard Department to capture the entire report as having been read. Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I want to draw this honorable House attention to some aspects of the report on page 8.5. And with your permission, I read. The issue of unification of pensions for all the security agencies in the country was raised during the consideration of the estimate. The committee observed an unfair treatment in the application of pensions among the security agencies, while the officers of the military, the police, and the other security agencies benefit from Cap 30 pension. Officers of the National Fire Service and the Prison Service have been excluded. The committee believes that the situation is unfair to officers of the National Fire Service and the Ghana Prison Service, who also face similar risks as their counterparts in the other security agencies. The committee encouraged the Ministry of Employment and Labour Relations and the National Pension Regulatory Authority to quicken the process towards pension unification in order to streamline the pensions in the security agencies. The committee further recommends the establishment of a separate pension scheme for all the security agencies in the country. In furtherance to the above, the committee recommends that the House adopts its report and approve the sum of 98,461,201 Ghana cedis to enable the authority to implement its programs and activities for the 2023 financial year, respectively submitted. Thank you.
Before the ranking member comes in, honourable members, having regards to the state of the business of the House, I direct that the House sits outside the regular sitting hours. Yes, honourable ranking member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For the 2022 budgetary figure for the National Pension Regulatory was 71.9 million. Out of this, 28.4 was for compensation, and the goods was 23.2 million. The Speaker, during the period, National Pension Regulatory Authority enrolled 203 pensions from the informal. That is 6.2%. The Speaker, and then authority also launched Cocoa Farmers Pension Scheme and commenced a pilot registration in August 2022. When it comes to 2023 allocation given to the authority, the Speaker, they were given net 8.4 million. Out of this figure, compensation was 40.1 million, goods and services of 48.3 million. This was allocated to the authority to implement its planned programs and activities for year 2023. So, Speaker, I'll move to 8.2%. 8.2%. That impact of the debt exchange program, which was very serious in affecting everybody's debt restructuring. Mr. Speaker, you were told that Minister of Finance asked the authority to perform a stress test on the private pension fund investment. Mr. Speaker, we found out that 10 out of 27 corporate trustees have invested a total of 49.7%. And this is a serious issue that we have to talk about it. Since it affects a pension, and everyone is thinking about the pension fund, we wish the government to take another look, second look on the pension to either from the debt restructuring that is about to take. So, Speaker, there were two items were given to us, that regulatory 2 and the policy action. The Speaker, the mental payment of contribution by the government to the Senate and the Public Service Workers Scheme in 2023 and beyond that. These are the things that we have to address as a member of parliament because it affects each one of us. So debt restructuring is very important and we need to take a second look. With these few words, Mr. Speaker, I support the motion.
At the conclusion of the debate, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The House has approved the sum of 98,461,210 Ghana cedis for the services of the National Pensions Regulatory Authority for the year ending 31st December 2023.
Speaker, we can now take motion 12 on page 6. And Mr. Speaker, with your leave, we've related with our colleagues for the Minister responsible for environment to move the motion on behalf of the Minister for Chieftaincy.
Very well. Honorable Minister, item 12, motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this Honorable House approves the sum of 44,980,080 Ghana cedis for the services of the Ministry of Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs for the year ending 31st December 2023. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move. Yes, Chairman.
Speaker, I rise to second the motion moved by the Minister, and in so doing present the committee's report. Speaker, I invite Hansa to capture the entirety of the report, and I leave myself to only portions of it. Speaker, the committee noted that the ministry is faced with the challenge of disintegrated data on traditional and religious leaders to inform decision-making. Speaker, the ministry is therefore expected to institute measures in the year 2023 to ensure that data on religious bodies and chieftaincy cases, as well as symbolisms, are collected. Speaker, in conclusion, the committee reiterates that the Ministry of Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs has a vital role to play in engendering national cohesion and maintaining peace and spiritual development, which are vital prerequisites for national growth and development. Speaker, I so present the committee. Speaker, with greatest of respect, I present this committee for and on behalf of the chair of the committee. I so present.
Yes. Very well, I'll put the question. All in favor of the House adopting the motion number 12, say aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The House has approved the sum of 44,990,080 Ghana cedis for the service of the Ministry of Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs for the year ending 31st December 2023. Yes.
Speaker, as other committee estimates are flickering and the printing, the room is busy at the moment. If we can suspend sitting for 2 hours and we resume 4:30 to continue.
Yes, Honorable Minority.
Mr. Speaker, if that finds favor with you, but they should make sure that when we come back, we have a number of reports and motions that are ready to be taken. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Honorable members, sitting is suspended until 4:30 p.m.